Hello, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Hi, Bhavya. Can you turn on your video, please? We'll start the session in 2 minutes. Yeah. Hi, good evening, everyone. So this is Anish, and I'm here on behalf of the National Law Training Institute. So a lot of you reached out to us regarding a session on 4 months to CLAT strategy, and a lot of you had doubts whether 4 months are enough to crack CLAT and what should be your holistic strategy to go about for your CLAT 24 preparation. So in that pursuit, we today have Bhavya Gupta among us, who will be taking you through this session, and she'll be telling you about her own experiences of the last 4 months and also guiding you about how to prepare for the next 4 months. She'll be talking about your sources because sources become extremely important in the last 4 months because you do not want yourself to get occupied with a lot of sources that doesn't make sense, and you would want to restrict yourselves to a very few important sources. So she'll be talking about sources, she'll be talking about individual strategy for specific sections. She'll also be talking about the number of mocks that you should give and also any other questions that you might have. But I request you to park your questions for the end of the session. First, let Bhavya complete her uh, first let Bhavya go through her slides that she has prepared for this session, and then you can feel free to ask any questions that you might have. This session is also being live streamed, so if you want to have a look back at whatever Bhavya said later on, you can go on our YouTube channel and check this video again. So Bhavya, over to you. I'll be leaving this session, so if you face any difficulty, feel free to text me on WhatsApp, and I'll be happy to come back.
Okay.
I'll
Thank
make
you,
you
Anish.
yeah, I'll make you the host. Just confirm if you are able to share screen.
All right. Yeah, I'm able to share my screen.
Right. Cool, then you can start sharing.
All right, just a second. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible. Uh, Still waiting for the actual slides to come.
I hope that's visible now.
Yep, it's visible now. Cool.
It's visible now. Great. Just give me a second.
All right, Bhavya, all the best for the session. I'll take your leave now. Cool.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Anish. So, hi everyone. As Anish introduced me, I am Bhavya Gupta. I am studying at the National Law School of India University. This is my first year here, and I gave CLAT 2023 and I got the AIR 95. So I'm here today to tell you the 4 month strategy for CLAT 2024. So I've been in your shoes. Actually, I've been in your shoes very, very recently. So I know what you're going through. I know what the struggles, what's the anxiety, what's the stress. So I'm here to alleviate a bit of that and help you prepare a roadmap for the coming months. And just in case you're not able to see me or not hear me, just leave a text on Zoom and I'll try to remedy that. All right. So I'll start with the general concerns or the basic FAQs we get as CLAT aspirants. So the first one would definitely be how to juggle CLAT and boards together. So yours is the second time CLAT will actually happen in December. CLAT has always occurred in May or June. And my batch was the first batch to give it in December, and you'll be the second ones there. So we are the only ones who've had to actually or physically juggle both of these together in the same time duration, because most of us have our first pre-boards in the month of November or December. So when it comes to juggling CLAT and boards together, my first main advice to every one of you would be, now is the time to prioritize CLAT. CLAT should be your number one priority day in and day out. You should be thinking about it when you're sleeping, brushing your teeth, all the damn time. CLAT has to be, number one here. And you will get many people telling you that you have to strike a balance between CLAT and boards, make it 50-50. And of course, that would be the absolute ideal situation wherein you can juggle both of them equally, you give equal attention to both. But we're humans at the end of the day, and we can't, honestly. You can make it do for like a month or two, but you will notice that one of these will start to falter. And honestly, I'm not saying that boards matter less than CLAT, but for the coming 4 months, CLAT is of a little more importance, and I'd suggest that you place CLAT higher on the priority ranking. So if you feel that you have a lot of time and you can devote it equally to CLAT and boards, good for you, great, you have a good timetable down. But if not, you're facing a little time shortage, time crunch, then go with CLAT. Prepare for CLAT, give it more of your attention and energies. Next would be, are 4 months enough? Guys, I think some of you have your audio on. If you could turn that off, please. Anyway, I'll just continue. So we have the next question, which was, are 4 months enough? So fortunately enough, we are giving CLAT. The best part about CLAT is it is not similar to other competitive exams like JEE or NEET. So we do not have the struggle of 4 years, 2 years, with full tension, or maybe 8 hours or 10 hours a day. CLAT is not an easy paper. I'm not saying it's easier or more harder than these papers I've just mentioned, but my point while mentioning these papers was CLAT is a mixture of hard work and smart work, unlike the other papers. So with CLAT, even if you give it a good 2 to 3 hours or 3 to 4 hours each day, good dedicated devoted time, you are very sure to crack it, because CLAT is not about the amount of time you give it, but the quality of time you actually devote to it. So if you're giving it 2 hours, you're giving your half an hour to GK, some part to English, some part to maths, legal reasoning, and every other section out there. You will notice that your marks in the mocks will start increasing. You'll feel more confident in your own preparation generally. Next, we have panic and anxiety. So I've mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. Panic and anxiety are a part and parcel of every competitive exam. Every single aspirant, all of you in the meeting right now, all of you out there doing coachings from other institutes are feeling the same thing. You might meet your classmates, your peers, and they're saying, no, we're very confident, or you know what, I don't feel confident at all. But all of you have this in common. Now that you can see the clock moving, you're reaching the December date really close. You can see it. You see the stress rising, the panic rising in you, and that's completely natural. But there's only one way to remedy that, and that is to prepare, to study, to devote some good quality time to CLAT prep. So at the end of the day, when you go back to sleep, you're not worried that I didn't do my checklist today. I didn't complete my necessary studies for the day. I've done them. I can sleep peacefully. I'll wake up tomorrow. I'll start the hustle again. And then finally, I'll give my exam in December and I'll be sorted. Or at least the next 5 years of my life will be relatively sorted. So, next point is bringing the plans to fruition. So, most of you must have joined the coaching maybe 1 year or 2 years in advance. And we have expectations and we set out some plans. So, you give the first 10 mocks, 20 mocks, and then you set a set of expectations for yourself that you'll start the mock this way, you'll start with GK, you'll start with English, whatever. Now's the time to execute those plans. You've had, maybe most of you would have had 6 months of planning by this point. It's time to sit down and actually bring that plan to fruition, to actually devote your time, to actually make those efforts you've been thinking about for a long time. So now stop making plans and start executing the plans. It's time for that now. So next is which sources to trust. So as Anish also mentioned in his introduction, we are the generation that on a click of a button, we have millions of sources at our disposal in like seconds. But it's very difficult to choose which ones are trustworthy, which ones will actually help you, and this abundance of material available to you. I'd suggest that you restrict yourselves to 3 to 4, or you know what, 2 to 3 materials, 2 to 3 coaching materials, or whatever at most. Because the more you diversify, the less confident you will feel. NLTI has some great material. You have compendiums, you have your mocks, which are again at most important. And if you just do those right, keep your material short, keep your pile short. but do them again and again, do them consistently, and you'll notice an effort. You'll notice a difference, and you won't need to diversify your options as much. Keep them restricted to a maximum of four, or try to bring it to three or two, and you'll notice a difference. You'll feel more confident at the end of the preparation, end of the day. So now we have mocks and how to analyze them. I think this is a question which has been there since the first CLAT paper happened, because how to analyze mocks especially. So when it comes to giving mocks, my advice would be 2 to 3 mocks every single week, and try to keep your mock time from 2 to 4. That is the actual CLAT time. I think for you guys as well, it was for us at least 2 to 4. So if you have school from Monday to Friday, I completely understand you can't give it the 2 to 4 time slot. But on weekends, your one mock that you're keeping for the weekends, that should be from 2 to 4. Be it your have some classes, postpone them, try to talk to the teachers and be like, I need this time slot for my CLAT prep. And I think they'll understand, they'll accommodate. And just try to find a midway so that you can keep your preparation on track. So now we'll move on to the specific topic and sectional discussions. And you know what? Let's start with English, which is not the most problematic thing that most aspirants face, but yes, it can be up there on the list. Just give me a second. I hope I'm visible and audible. Just let me know if that's the case. All right. So I'll move on with the English thing. So again, I'll be saying this for all of your sections. Your primary source of knowledge has to be mocks and PYQs and PYPs. If nothing, you come back at the end of the school day, you feel you're exhausted and you don't want to open a book, study something new, just give a mock, give a sectional test, give a shorter version of the same mock. You'll feel much better about yourself. You'll feel that you've done something substantial at the end of the day, and it will help you understand how far you've come and how far you need to go. So mocks are the holy grail when it comes to CLAT prep. If nothing, give mocks. If you're feeling that I don't want to start something new, okay, just give a sectional test of that subject, give mocks. Now let me come to English specifically. So we have the literary and poetic devices, which most of us face an issue with, and honestly, I did too, because sometimes they do not make sense to you. So what you can do about this is, if you are the person who likes to write down stuff, physically, take a chart paper, take a A3 sheet, go onto a trustworthy website on Google, type the literary devices, and the top 20 most commonly used or the top 30 most commonly used, they're more than enough. Just note them down. Or if you're the person who needs to revisit the same thing again and again, just go to their website every day for like a week, and you'll notice that at the end of like Monday to Saturday, on Sunday you'll have it down. So you see them and you see a literary device in the mock the next time, you'll be able to identify it within seconds. So that will save you time, and of course that will put you ahead of the competition, which is something which is very, very important. Now we have a list of tones. When it comes to tones, there's only several ways of approaching it. One is through extensive reading, literary reading, which you can do on an everyday basis. You can read your newspapers, you can read your novels, whatever you want to do will help. Just read more and try and identify at the end of each chapter or the end of each passage what was the tone of the author. Just do it in everyday life. You'll notice the some and tone words are very important. So annotate them as you go along, especially in mocks. You see that for example, the author said angrily. So angrily here is a tonal word. It helps you identify what the tone of the author is, and that becomes really important. So just take a pencil or pen in hand and keep annotating as you read. That will help you when you have to come back to the question, come back to the passage to answer the question. So we have general grammar and vocab. So general grammar and vocab is not a problematic thing now, because more so because we have a passage-based paper. Even ALIT is now mostly passage-based. So you don't need to get the grammar rules or grammar terms right. You just need to have them down. They're a very basic and foundational thing, which I hope all of you know by this point. But even if you don't, no worries, no hassle. Go back, just know what an adverb is, what an adjective is, and how they differentiate from one another. And just see, they are very basic. These are basic things when it comes to English. So I feel that these are things you will most probably know, but you need a brushing up on. So this will take no more than not even an hour, and half an hour, and you'll be done with this. Now, vocab. Vocab is something that builds over time, again, through reading, through writing, through everyday practices. And if you think you're lacking in vocab, if passages baffle you and you have to come back to those words again and again, or the vocab questions in the English passages or something you get consistently stuck upon, then my advice to you would be keep a list, keep a diary or keep a notepad separately. At the end of the day, take 5 words that you learned that day or that you saw in a newspaper or that you feel are difficult. Or make synonyms. Take happy, for example. So I take happy for the day and I go on Google, I open my dictionary and I find 5 or 4 words that are synonymous to happy, but are words I didn't previously know or I don't completely understand. So you can link them with happy and this will help you remember it. So later when you read the, I'm sorry again, someone is unmuted. Please mute yourself. Thank you. So this will help you remember words because you're linking them with a base word you already know. And of course, you already know the base words, but so it'll help you to, remember these again when you're doing the passages and multiple passages, that is. Okay, so now we have the practicing part. So when it comes to English, it does not require a whole lot of practice. But if you're a step ahead, that again puts you a step above the competition, and that is a very great place to be. So the GMAT passages, GMAT club passages, or the LSAT passages, they are great for practice. They are above the CLAT paper standards. So if CLAT is here, GMAT is here. But if you can solve the GMAT, again, it puts you on a whole other level of confidence. And at the end of the day, you'll know that if I can do GMAT, I'll be able to do CLAT. It's not if easily, then, still it will be a piece of cake. You can do it. Next comes literary reading, which I think is a part and parcel of everyday part or parcel of your life. That is reading novels, maybe. If not novels, you have to read the newspaper. I think that is something regurgitated to every one of you multiple times. And try and implement that. Again, not every day is the same. It happens once or twice that you'll miss it, but try not. Try to keep it consistent. Try reading the newspaper every day. At least, if nothing, the editorials and the first 3 pages. Technically should not avoid the sports section or the entertainment section, but if you want to and if you don't have time, you can. It's not that big a deal. So next up, we have general knowledge. General knowledge might be the GK might be the most convoluted section of CLAT paper. I think 90% of us, or 95% of us face some sort of a trouble with GK, at least in the beginning. So I'm assuming you're somewhere with GK, you've done some basics, you know what are the static topics, what are the current affair topics. So let me give you a very good example of how I did it, and maybe you can implement a bit of this into your lives as well. So I'm reading the newspaper, and for a week consistently, I come across some article on Manipur. So I realized that Manipur is of a significant interest in my readings. What I do is I take a notepad, I write Manipur as the heading. Everything related to Manipur. The current CM, the day it became a state, the day it was integrated into the Union of India, everything that is of current importance, the national parks that are there in Manipur, the capital of Manipur, of course, the important tribes, and why is it in news right now? In very short, crisp notes, sorry. Note these down, keep them down either on a soft copy or a hard copy, as you prefer, and this will help you link it. So what happens is that is exactly what you'll see in passages. There's only one common main topic. For example, the UCC or let's take Manipur only. So Manipur is a common topic, and you have 5 questions that are somehow related to Manipur. So if you do this in your daily life practices, you think as the mind of the invigilator or the examiner. You're thinking, how can they set the paper? And again, this will put you ahead of the competition and help you make notes, help you realize that what is important and what is not. And just keep in mind that these have to be short. Nobody is asking you to write a passage or explain in detail. So keep these short. You are not doing UPSC here. So one word, max to max a sentence is more than enough. You do not need passages at all. Now why have I written play the odds? This is not gambling, of course, but I've written play the odds because you cannot cover every single topic under the sun. It is just not possible, especially when it comes to static and current GK. You just cannot cover it in its entirety. What you can do is understand what is important, what is not. CLAT is in December, so everything from last December to this December is of utmost importance. But if you're facing a time crunch, we have 4 months left. Maybe doing 1 year's worth of GK is going to be hard. We focus on 6 months. But in the 6 months, we do it very well. That if you ask me the important or the highlights of the 6 months, I can give you a very crisp highlight at what are the important topics that can come. Manipur, UCC, everything that you see in news is something that can come. So out of your six passages, I think five or six passages that come, at least three or four are from the news that was the highlight or the headline in the last 6 7 months. And this is important. So you are playing the odds. You can't cover everything, but you're playing the odds that even the examiner will only give you the topics that he or she or they saw in the newspaper or in their daily lives. So play the odds in that sense. Focus on only the topics you can cover and you think are significant to your preparation. Newspaper readings, again, something which has been told to you multiple times, I'm sure. Every single person I must have been telling you, read the newspaper, and they're right. There is no other alternative to reading the newspaper. You can skip some things, but reading the newspaper is essential for every aspect of CLAT. So read the newspaper, either the Hindu or the Indian Express. And if you feel that a topic requires more in-depth research, go to the UPSC sources, go to Insight IAS, go to Drishti IAS, and they will give you a brief, not a brief, they will give you a detailed introspect, but you can pick out a brief that is important to your cause. And that will help you sort out the GK aspect, not in its entirety, but mostly, I can say. Now, if, as I said, we only have 4 months left, it is very hard to cover the last year's GK. So focus on the last 6 months. So basically, July to December or June to December has to be in your diary as the most important months. These 6 months need to have detailed notes, not detailed notes, like a lot of notes, a lot of topics that you need to cover. But you have 4 months, so focus on last 6 months GK as the of the utmost importance. Give it priority. GK has to be something you need to do every day. You cannot skip GK. You can do everything else on alternative days for half an hour, whatever. GK has to be done for an hour, at least minimum an hour every day, so as to ensure at least some standing in the mock, some standing in the real CLAT paper as well. So now, and of course, when you have the NLTI GK compendiums coming out and the boosters, which are beyond helpful, and the Gazette, of course, as I've mentioned on the slide, because these are compiled by individuals who have given the paper, who have some sort of an idea of what is important, what is not, and it is relatively brief. So you can always come back to it, especially in the last 2 months. You'll notice that there's a abundance of information coming your way. So it's good to narrow down your sources, and the NLTI does a great job of providing you with a small gazette, small compendium that you can easily go through in a matter of hours or maybe a matter of days, depending on your approach. Now, one different tip I'd like to tell you is download news apps. So, in shorts, NDTV, whatever news channel you prefer, just get 2 to 3 apps on your phone. And what this will do is it will give you the headlines of the day on your phone. You're out with your friends, you're out doing something, you're not studying at the moment. You see a GK notification on your phone, you just read it. You read the headline and you get some sort of an idea. So even when you're not completely studying, this will keep you updated. This will keep you up to date with the this will keep you up to date with the daily news so as to not feel completely missing out on GK, because you'll always feel lesser than and you're less than you should be studying. GK will make you feel more smaller, inferior about yourself. So these are some tips and tricks you can do so to feel better about your prep at the end of the day. Now we have daily MCQ test and the NLIT booster, which is not out yet, but you can look forward to it in the next month, I think. And when it comes to daily quizzes, again, something you should do, in my opinion, at the end of the day. So when you're winding up your studies for the day, maybe at night or whatever time you feel suitable, just go back to the daily quiz. I think this is 10 to 30 questions long. It's completely doable in 15 minutes. Go back to the GK sources, do it at night so that you have an idea of what the answers were, you keep it in your mind. And then, because GK doesn't need to be analyzed as such, you just need to remember and link things. So you can do this any time of the day. There's no right time to do GK because there is no analyzation as such required. So that was all for GK. I'll be moving on to legal reasoning. Just a second. Yes. So when it comes to legal reasoning, there's see legal reasoning is something which is in the last couple of years become more or less like English. As in, what I mean by that is your answers are there in the passage. You do not need prior or extra legal knowledge to get to the passages, and that is a very good opportunity for everyone here because none of us have had the opportunity to study legal terminology or law as such in our school lives. So what you can do to get down with the lingo is read the Hindu and the Indian Express's legal articles. This will help you get down how lawyers, how jurists write and how they speak. Because all the passages that come in the paper are extracts from newspaper articles or judgments, and they can be hard to comprehend, at least in the starting. So if you read these articles, you'll get the lingo down. You'll know what terminology is often used, what terminology to look out for, and what it generally means. This will also help you in the third point that I've mentioned, which are legal terms and maxims. So Latin maxims are not as important as they once were in your prep, but it's important to know a basic idea so as to not feel completely lost when you're reading it in the exam hall for the first time. So, as in when you come across a word, you know, for example, sine qua non, a status quo, such and words such as these, you will have an idea of what the author is trying to talk about, and you're not lost, and it doesn't break your flow of reading. Now, as I said, download the news apps. We have something similar here, which is Live Law and Bar and Bench. Live Law and Bar and Bench are designated news pages that are focused towards legal news and law as such. So this will help you get the lingo down, understand what is of legal importance, legal GK. This is again important for legal GK as well. And it will help you focus down your studies and especially your legal reasoning studies to a couple of sources. So you do not need to devote a lot of time to this, but you can just read a couple of articles and maybe, of course, do your mocks and sectional tests once a week, and you'll feel pretty confident about where you're at. Again, I've mentioned mocks and PYPs previous times, like a lot of times now, so you get that. Okay, so as law students, most of us are not gifted with this subject, and neither was I. But now we come to quants. So, I as an aspirant left quants for the last part of my prep, and I think most of you would have done the same thing. But now you have to realize that later is now is later. You're there. You can't procrastinate anymore. There's no tomorrow as such. So you need to start your quant prep now. So what you can do to start your prep is you've given the mocks, of course, you've given at least 10 mocks by now. That is the bare minimum I'm talking about. So you know that what kind of questions can come in the paper. Percentages, profit and loss are of the utmost importance. So take one topic per week and try and get the tricks and Vedic maths aspect of it down. 30 minutes daily or an hour every other day is more than enough to get this section of your paper sorted. And this section is again very, very important because this section can help you crack it. Because most of us here are good in English, and I have the other four sections, we are at the equal standing. It is maths or it is quants that puts you above the rest. That can help you increase your rank in the mocks and in the CLAT paper. And I've seen this with myself happening in the actual CLAT paper that many of my friends had. We had similar marks in other sections, but it was quants that put me above them in the CLAT ranking. So just devote a little extra time to this now that you're in the last leg of your preparation. Give it, as I said, 30 minutes daily or an hour every other day. Do a little bit of practice, and if you're feeling that the practice is wearing you down, give mocks and take your actual time to solve the quant section. So instead of just doing it and leaving it in the mock that I'll get to it later, just do it right now or take some extra time, take half an hour and get those 3 passages done. So that at the end of, I think it's 3 now. I don't know with the reduced amount of questions how less weightage quant gets, but I'm assuming it's 3. So that will help you get those 3 passages down. And at the end of the day, that's a short marks because if you've done your tricks, if you know the formulas, you can at least solve like 5 or a minimum of 8 questions out of 15, at least in our time. and that can help you, just increase your ranking. You can go from 100 to 90 or to 80 real quick from that. And one extra source that you guys can use, which is something I saw too, was 30 Days Wonder from S. Chand. You can use this book. It's, I think, easily available on Google. You have a PDF available for free, and you can go to it if you need any particular mathematical help as such and questions to practice. In adherence to your mocks. Now it is logical and critical reasoning, which is something I think which is new to all of us. We haven't done it in the passage form as such yet. Even if you gave Olympiads and everything, logical reasoning in the passage form is not something we're very used to. It's new to almost all of us. And for this, I think NLTI has the best material out there. So you have the CR Panacea, which is great to cover the CLAT level learning. So if you do this, if you do this done, then you know that you've covered the ground level, the foundational things of it, and you'll feel pretty sorted. But again, as I mentioned previously, if you want that extra edge over the others, if you want that extra bout of confidence, the LSAT LR crash course, which is both, I think, a video series on YouTube and a test paper series, it helps you feel more confident about your preparation because, again, you're 2 levels above what the competition is doing, what the others are doing. So you'll feel pretty sorted when you give the actual CLAT paper or even your mocks for that matter. For logical or critical reasoning, your previous year papers become even more important because they, at least the 2023 paper, what I noticed in my paper was it was very, very lengthy passages, and the answers were literally there in the passage, but you had to comprehend the passage, you had to analyze it to get to the answer. And that is something I noticed in the previous year papers also. So it will help you understand how to go about this section because the readings have to be done carefully and with comprehension. You're not reading it just for the sake of reading it. You have to read it and then make sense of it. So that is something you'll get down if you do the previous year papers and of course your current books. Similar to the LSAT crash course, we have the 1000 GMAT type questions, again available on Google for free. This is a PDF you can download. Again, these are going to be a little harder than what you're used to, but just know that if you crack these, if you're able to do 5 or 10 of these every day, you will be able to do the CLAT paper easily because these are of a different level altogether. They are very hard. And if you're able to do these, I think you'll find the CLAT paper or the mock papers to be a little easier, and that will help you along. Again, something I mentioned in English was annotate while you're reading. So have a pen or a pencil in hand while you're reading your passages. Don't make a mess of it. Only highlight or underline the things you feel are necessary. Because eventually, when you come back to the passage and if everything is underlined, you find it very hard to get to the part you're actually looking for. So read the questions, come back to the passage, underline everything, and then go answer. That was my approach, that I read the questions first, then I read the passage, and then I answered the questions. Because this tells you what to focus on, what words, what terms, what sentences to look out for in the huge passage. So you can do this, you can try and apply this to yourself, and if it works, then it works. So now, before commitments, I would like to just give you a little bit extra advice and what I've noticed from my own preparation. So now that you have 4 months left, you don't have a lot of time for experimentation as such. But my advice to you would be take the next couple of weeks or maybe this week itself and the mocks that you're giving, experiment with them. By that, I mean try different sections, placing your different sections differently. Starting with English or maybe LR, then go to legal, then go to GK, then to maths. There's only 2-3 basic rules here that you have to follow. Maths should not be the section you start with. Never, ever. Maths has to be in the middle somewhere. It cannot be the section you start with because it can break or make your paper. And now that you have 120 questions for 120 minutes, my advice would be keep maths somewhere in the middle or at the end, never in the start. But you can always try experimenting, placing English, LR, GK, in different positions and see what works for you. I personally went with logical reasoning first, then I went to GK, legal reasoning, English and maths. This is what worked for me. Doesn't mean it will work for you, but you can of course try bouts of this in your own mocks and then you'll understand, you'll find the optimal level, you'll find your hit and you'll know that you have to go through with it. You'll find one sort of a sequence that you will feel is best for your mental preparation, that doesn't exhaust you by the end of the paper, because you have to sit there for 2 hours. You have no other alternative. You can't just get up. So this will help you get it down and just understand how should I approach the paper, how can I alter the paper to my needs particularly. Now, when it comes to commitments, what I mean by this is what to do in a week. Basically, this is a weekly basis. Just a second. Yes, this is a weekly basis schedule, sort of, which is you have to, now that you're in the last leg of the preparation, 2 to 3 marks a week is essential. It's absolutely essential. If nothing else, this has to be done. Make it a point to do 2 to 3 marks a week. Next, we have one sectional test per week for English and the 5 words a day thing I told you about previously. This is not non-negotiable, but I'd advise you to do this because people avoid English and then in the paper they face some problems. So I do not want that for you people. So I want you to have that confidence, have that, self-confidence when you sit for the paper or the mock. So just do one sectional test per week and the 5 words a day. Logical reasoning follows the same track. Do one sectional test per week and you're pretty much sorted. This doesn't apply to you if you've just started your preparation. This applies to you if you've had a couple of months or maybe a year, if you're a couple of months or a year into your preparation. If you've just started your preparation, then these rules do not apply to you as such. You'll have to alter these to suit your needs. Now that we come to GK, as I've mentioned before, you have to do your daily current affairs, your daily quiz, and your weekly revision. So what I mean by this is, for every single topic that you are doing here, you do all your new topics, your new knowledge on the weekdays, and you analyze and revise on the weekends. So keep the weekends for that one mock and all the analyzing and the revision of everything that you did in the entire week. Because you can't jumble these up and do analyzing on Monday. You can obviously find an optimal thing that suits you, but it is better, it is advisable to keep them separate and sorted. So Monday to Friday for new topics and new research, and weekends are for revision and analyzing. And this will, at the end of the month, you'll have at least 100 GK topics down. You'll be done with your 5 to 6 quant topics, and you'll notice a increase in your marks in English, LR, and legal, which is of course the dream and the situation you want to be in. Now, when it comes to legal reasoning, you have to do your 2 sectional tests per week. Make sure these are from different sources. You're not doing the same thing again and again. So as to understand that you're not lacking, but where you stand. If you're ahead of some people, what are you missing? What sort of legal writing is baffling you? And you can go back to that legal reading and understand what to do so as to make it better. Now, quant, as I've mentioned before also, it's something you need to do for 3 to 4 hours a week, and that's more than enough. Quant is not the most important part of the CLAT paper, but what it does is it separates you from the rest. It's a very easy indicator of how different are you, how easily you can be separated from the other aspirants, and what are you the cut above the rest. Basically, that's what that is about. So that was it from my presentation as such. I'd love to hear if any of you have any questions.
What is the correct way of approaching RC passages?
Okay, so Saurav, was it? Hi,
Yeah.
Saurav. So when it comes to RC passages, the correct way of approaching it is, again, as I'm telling you, everything that I'm telling you right now has been something I have accommodated and it worked for me. It might not work for you. But what I did was I read the questions first. So you go back to the passage, you read the questions first, then you go back to the passage. You have this 5 prompts in mind. For example, if a question asked, there's a passage about Sarojini Naidu, and there was one question about where she born. So the word born was stuck in my head. So when I go back to the passage and I see something related to born, I just underline it then and there. And I can either remember it or I can come back to it because it is annotated. It is very easy for me to identify that this is the answer of at least one of the questions. And that will make it easier. Read the entire passage, don't skim through it, but annotate it. So if you ever need to come back to it, you have a very clear roadmap as to where your answers lie in the passage.
Is this a
And for
strategy work for different difficult passages?
See,
Like
this can work for difficult
incident-based
passages for
question.
sure, but there are some passages that are difficult for every one of us. Some of us find the economical passages easier, but some of us find philosophy more difficult. So when it comes to philosophy or passages that you find particularly difficult, my advice would be read the passages because you have 1 minute per question, which is a great boon in my opinion. So just read the passage very carefully. Annotate things that you feel are important, and in the current leg of your preparation, read more theological essays. So go back to Aeon essays, I think that is on Google, and you will find different subsection of essays available. So go on to theology, go on to philosophy if you're finding that difficult, that is, and then read those essays. If you find economical essays different, you have the newspaper at your disposal. If you find legal or political essays difficult, again you can read them in the newspaper. So everything that you're finding difficult, devote more time to it, devote more energy to it. But yeah, the same practice applies to everything. Read the questions first, go back to the passage. It's just if it's a passage you are familiar with, it will take you less time. If it is something that you find harder, just read through it slowly. I'll just go back to the chat. Give me a second. Sir, everyone asking, can CLAT be done in 4 months? Trust me, it is very easily done in 4 months. It is not a JE or a NEET paper. 4 months, but with devoted and actual studying, you can get it done. Not a problem at all. How did your mock scores vary? So my mock scores varied a lot. Even in the last 4 months, they went up, they went down. And I'm going to tell you anecdote. A peer of mine who was in the same coaching as me, he was consistently doing amazingly well in mocks. And today he is not in any NLU. I'm not trying to disparage him or his college of choice. What I mean is mocks only give you an idea of the actual paper. You cannot determine what is going to happen on the CLAT day. So keep it in mind that mocks are not the real paper, and mocks are there for a reason. They're there to prepare you, not to scare you. Okay, so somebody is texting me that they're getting 50 marks. Okay, so have you just started your preparation? I would like to ask you that. If you just started your preparation, that's completely normal. If you've just been preparing, if it's been a while, then you need to start reading more and maybe approach English differently because, okay, it's been an year. All right, that is not an issue at all. What I would like you to do is devote more time. If you're facing a problem in English, then maybe reach out to someone who has a proficiency in English and ask them to devote some time with you. But you can do GK and maths is something that is applicable to all of us. It has nothing to do with a particular language or a particular sect of people. So focus more on that. They will help you uplift your marks, and don't get dejected because anything can happen in the last 4 months. You have plenty of time to change that around. So I'm sorry, whoever's asking me how much I was getting this time in mocks. I really don't remember a lot about it, but I can tell you I was getting close to 100, but that doesn't mean that that is the reason I got in. I was not getting above 100 for sure. But trust me, your mock scores do not determine where you will end up in life, where you'll end up in college also. Just make sure to give your mocks diligently because the more mocks you give, the clearer you get on your preparation and it will help you.
Didi, I have a doubt.
Please ask.
Can we do daily 100 question except GK?
Can you do? Can you please ask that again?
Can we do 100 questions daily except GK or mock days? Like 4 days in a week, can we do 100 questions?
See, there's not that is honestly great doing 100 questions, but questions are not the end all be all. My advice to you would be do a mix of questions and readings. So read the newspapers, make your notes, and then do the questions because questions alone might not be the best strategy. But if it works for you, it works for you. I can't disparage that completely.
No,
But
Didi,
I
I want
suggest a
to ask.
mix of writing, note taking, and then doing the questions.
दीदी आई वांट टू आस्क लाइक दैट जैसे मॉक्स आते हैं उसमें सिर्फ जीके एक्सक्लूड करके उसको सोल्व कर लें जैसे कि 4 days per week.
I don't think that would be a good practice because 4 days of that was not. Give sectional tests if you want that. If you want to give mocks if you want to give a paper that does not include GK, give sectional tests. But my advice to you would be the 2-3 mocks that I mentioned that have to be given every week, those have to be in completion. You can't skip anything there because you are in the
वो तो
last 4
कंप्लीट
months
नहीं
now.
दूंगा, वो बाकी
That is
4
not possible.
जो बाकी 4 days लेफ्ट होंगे उधर जैसे उनमें प्रैक्टिस कर सकते हैं एक्सक्लूडिंग जीके।
Yeah, you can do that. Of course, you can do that. But then go back to those passages. Go back to the GK passages that you left. And honestly, GK is something you don't need to leave. If this was quant, I'll maybe understand why you did that. But GK, you don't need to leave. Just, you can get an idea. You can eliminate certain options, and tukka won't be the right word. Don't do that. But you can sort of understand what this is relating to. So don't completely leave out GK. My advice would be, but if that works for you, that works for you. I can't again disparage that in its entirety.
मॉक के बाद यदि सोल्व कर सकते हैं ना जीके, जैसे कि अभी टाइमर लगा के तो पहले वो सोल्व कर लिए, उसके बाद जीके सोल्व कर लेंगे.
That is a practice that is fine for like the coming month or two, but eventually when you get to the last 2 months wala mark, that wouldn't be helpful. So my advice would be don't even start something that is not a long-term thing. Rather do it in its entirety. Okay, so somebody is facing issues in revising GK. So guys, as I told you, when it comes to GK, do not do any new GK on the weekends. Weekends are completely devoted to just revising, because revising is more important at the end of the day than doing your new topics. Because if you just keep doing new topics and there's nothing retaining in your brain, it is not going to be helpful at all. So you need to revise GK. When it comes to revising GK, you need to give it some dates. So either if you're taking handwritten notes, or you're taking software notes, just go back to them. See, different people do different things. I went back at the end of the week, but some people go back at the end of the day as well. But that might not be the most fruitful strategy. So just devote your days and devote certain hours maybe to just revising GK. GK, especially because GK has to be revised consistently. Okay, so how to analyze mocks? Nandini, I gave some 50 mocks, 50, 60 mocks before I give the actual CLAT paper. But again, that doesn't mean that is the reason I'm sitting in NLS today. Of course, I'm telling you this again, mocks are very, very important, but they're not the most important thing at the end of the day. How to analyze mocks? So again, this is a very important question. I'd like everyone to take notice of this. How to analyze mocks? So you sit with a mock paper. People say that an analyzation session should take 2 to 3 hours, but it always took me 1 hour at max. So what you do is you sit with your paper. GK and maths do not need to be analyzed. So just leave them for the end. We come to English, logical reasoning, and legal reasoning. When you do English, you see if the answer was correct. And if you see that with the explanation of the answer, that was your thought process correct. Did you reach that answer in the same way that the examiner intended? If you're reaching the right answer but through the wrong method, this is similar to maths, honestly. If you're reaching the right answer but through the wrong method, you might get it right this time, but the next time you'll not get it right. And that is something you don't want to happen on the actual paper day. So when you're doing your questions, just see if your thought process was right. If your method of reaching that answer, especially in logical reasoning, was right. If you approach the question in the same way that the author intended or the examiner intended. And legal reasoning has become sort of like English only. So you just need to go through the passage again and just revisit the things that you did wrong. So if I got an answer wrong, why did I get it wrong? In legal, what happens is you get 2 yeses, 2 nos. If you know the questions I'm talking about, that was he liable? Yes, yes, no, no. So if you got the yes part right, then why was your reasoning wrong? Go back to the topic at hand and just understand that is your understanding of the topic wrong. And if it is not, it could be a fluke. It could just be that you read the passage wrong or whatever. If you're getting it wrong in its entirety, that the answer was yes with its explanation and you did no with an explanation, then you need to revisit that essay in its entirety. Then just read the essay again, or read the passage again, and then revisit the question. And if you're facing a problem again, reach out to your mentors, reach out to your teachers, and just try and understand where's the gap in your understanding, and just go back to it again and again. All right, we have more questions coming in. Just give me a minute. How can we increase? Okay, guys, something you guys have, which I did not, was you have 120 questions for 120 minutes. My advice would be try and complete as much as you can in 100 minutes. So the last 20 or at least the last 10 minutes are solely left for revising. So when you are revising and you have that 10 minutes to get back to the questions you were doubtful about, you will help increase your marks through missing out on the negative marking. Because the negative marking is something which is a huge problem when it comes to CLAT papers and aspirants. You will see that just decreases your marks significantly. So when you revise your paper after giving it once, you'll notice that if you made any circling error, you're able to correct it. If you read the question wrong, you're able to correct that. And that will save your marks in that sense. And when it comes to attempting more, that depends upon two things. First, how much are you studying theory? And two, how fast do you read? Reading speed can only increase with time. So give it time, give it a couple of weeks, maybe a month. Read more and try and comprehend. Do not read like a child with a pencil in hand and with a pencil in hand, as I said. But every single word you're putting emphasis on it. Read it in a flow, but try and comprehend it as well. So take your time, build some practices, give it a month at max. Do not give it more than a month. If you're facing this issue even after a month, then there's a certain problem. You need to reach out to your mentors. But give it a month, read more newspapers. Newspapers are the best. Editorials, especially, will help you get your reading speed down. Set a timer of 30 minutes, cover to cover, or maybe 45 minutes. Cover to cover, you should have read your newspaper. If you're not able to, again, give it some time. And if you're still facing some issues, then reach out to your teachers and your mentors. They'll be able to guide you more on this, to your particular approach.
Hello,
Yes.
hello, Bhavya. See, I
Yes,
wanted
yes,
to
please.
ask like how to cover GK backlogs because I have like around 2 3 months of backlog. I'm not really clueless. I know what are the important topics and I have made notes on them, but I don't really get
Mm-hmm.
the time to revise.
All
And
right.
like how often should we revise? Because I don't think like weekends would be enough.
See, if you think that weekends are not enough, then at the end of the day, just before you again wrap up your study, give it half an hour, give it 20 minutes to just revise everything you did in GK. So GK has to be rereading it again. And some things that just come on your tiptoes. So if weekends you're feeling are not enough for you, give it one more day. Maybe Wednesday because it is in the middle of the week, or maybe every single day if that works for you, that works for you. Or if that doesn't work for you, you just need one more day. Extend your Friday into your weekend, or give Wednesday solely for revision of Monday to Tuesday, and then Thursday to Friday will be done on the weekends. If that approach works for you, that is fine as well. For
And
people
like
who are not
the
able, sorry, please continue.
yes, the topics which we have covered, like maybe let's say March topics from March and January, should we like we
Mm-hmm.
should keep revising them too, right?
Yeah, keep revising them. But again, just remember when you go back to the old topics, you realize that certain topics that you thought of were of importance before are really not that important anymore.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe even
that
if they are
happens.
important, you don't have time to focus on them. So just, weed that out. Focus on the topics that are actually of importance. And if you feel that the others are not that important, just let them be. Because again, as I said before, you're only human. You cannot do everything under the sun.
And the
Okay, everybody. Yeah, sure.
one last query that did you sit for ALET?
I sat for ALET as well. I was not able to clear that with the good marks enough. I was 300 something in my ranking, but I sat for ALET as well.
And so like should we start preparing like on the sidelines for ALET as well, like analytical reasoning?
You should honestly, but with ALET, at least what I saw, my batch saw was, if you guys, I don't know if you've seen the previous year paper, but they gave us a complete all bouncer, I would say, because everything was jumbled up. It was not a usual paper as it is usually. So expect a little bit of a twist and turn with when it comes to ALET. But yes, start your preparation side by side. And when it comes, I think the new mocks that they're giving you for ALET have a mix of all strategies and all previous year papers. Give the previous year paper for ALET. That was quite a different paper in the history of ALET. So maybe that will help you understand what to expect from ALET. And my advice to you would be, don't expect a lot. Anything can happen when it comes to ALET paper.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So people who are having problem with the newspaper and the editorials, guys, there is no right time to finish an editorial or a complete newspaper. And you don't have to read it cover to cover every day. That again might not be humanly possible. But focus on the first 2 pages. That is the first political news and headlines and the editorials. Editorials I think you should be able to read a complete editorial in 5 to 8 minutes in a perfect sense of the word. If you're exceeding this time, just try and understand why and try and reduce it. If even after quite a bit of effort you feel you're not able to, then reach out to your mentors and they'll advise you personally on what to do. But in 5 to 8 minutes, you should be able to read an entire editorial. Ideally, of course. And if you're not able to comprehend editorials, all right. So if you're not able to comprehend editorials, I think we get in Hindu, we used to get 3 to 4 editorials during my time, and one or two of those were always a little tough, and one of them was usually easy. So political editorials are usually easy to comprehend. We are aiming to be law students, so I think we are even interested in that aspects. And philosophy can sometimes be a little harder, or editorials on topics as AI or scientific topics can be a difficult thing to comprehend all the time. So, but that's completely all right. Take your time with it. If you're not able to understand it, sit with a dictionary, sit with your phone open, just Google the things you're not able to get. And maybe reach out to somebody personally who can cater it to your approach, who can tell you how to break it down, how to read it in one stretch so as to not, you know, burden you with the entire editorial at once. And it's okay. If you're facing some issues, it's all right. You have plenty of time to get over your pre-existing fears and pre-existing I don't want to use that word, pre-existing problems. You know what, I'll put it that way. Okay, so we have other people asking me about my mock sequence. I'll share it with you, Adarsh, but please don't take this as the holy grail. Just because this worked for me, it might not work for you. My sequence was, I started with logical reasoning. I went to GK. I did legal reasoning. Then I did maths. Maths and English were always interchangeable as the second last or last. But this is what I did: logical, GK, legal, English maths, or maths English, depending upon the passages. But please, you can of course try this once, but don't take it as the holy grail. Apply it to yourself, cater it to your needs. You're very welcome, guys. Any other question that I've missed? Just what should be the ideal
Hello,
daily
Didi.
schedule?
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening, Didi.
Good evening. Good
Actually,
evening.
yeah. Didi, actually, I wanted to just discuss the way I make GK notes. Is it the correct way or not? Like what
All
I do
right.
is, yeah. So what I do is I take the important topics of a day, like 4 to 5 topics I get in a day. So I go online, search it online, like Indian Express or the Hindu, and then I read it from there, and from there only I make online notes. I copy and paste the important lines that I see that are factual or something that's important, some minister's name or something data is there. And
All
then
right.
what I do is I search the same topic on UPSC sites like Drishti IS. If it's not, my first preference is always Drishti IS. And then if it's not
Okay.
available on that, I go for Insight IS. And if there's something like a DSC, I was reading today, so that something it's a council, so I
Mhm.
came across that one council, so I thought that it might be that council would be important, so I just searched that one council and then Drishti eyes, and I made, like, I copy pasted the same note of Drishti eyes
All
again from
right.
there.
I get your query. I get your point completely. Okay. By the way, software notes and hardware notes. Soft copy notes, hard copy notes. No issue at all. Do what works for you. Now, when it comes to soft copy notes, I think the one thing that I would advise you not to do is copy, because as you write down or as you type it, it helps you register it better. You remember it better. Yes, it will take more time because typing or writing both take more time as copying and pasting, but it will help you register it and maybe remember it for a longer period of time, or remember it for a more duration. So my advice would be, don't copy and paste, and not every topic needs to be researched in detail through Drishti or whatever. Only certain topics that you are seeing in the limelight again and again, or that are evergreen topics, that are always elections. When it comes to election policies, Manipur in the current times, the Uniform Civil Code. These are three examples I can think of that have been very prominent in the news cycle recently. So these are important, and maybe they require deeper research. So these are some kind of topics that you can go back and research on Drishti. Not every topic has to be researched on Drishti. that will make your life very difficult. And this is not UPSC, this is CLAT. So my advice would be just try and shorten that and try and type your notes instead of just copying and pasting that the factual information.
Okay, Didi. So like,
And one more point would be keep it short and crisp. Instead of long lines, CM hyphen and Biren Singh. Do not make the CM of Manipur is. You'll just not remember this. Just short and crisp notes. Very short. Use important ka IMP. That's completely all right. Just short and crisp. That's the two things you need to remember.
okay.
Okay.
So Didi, one more thing. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
what I do now is I highlight those notes, like the most important things. I just highlight them and read them again. Like when revising,
Okay.
I just highlight it once. So, and if sometimes it requires, so I write it down. Like the facts, I try to remember by writing like some things. So,
Mm-hmm.
like the way I'm making now, it takes very much less time. I used to make hard copy notes earlier, a month, like 1 month before.
All
But
right. So if you
it used
highlight
to
them and then
be
you note them down, then honestly, if this approach works for you, then good for you. Everything I've said right now to you as an individual or to the group, take it with a grain of salt because these are things that I think will work. I am also a one-time aspirant. I am not a CLAT mentor by any meaning of the word, but I am giving you advice of what worked for me. So if this works for you, then great. Follow the things that work for you. Don't alter your approach just because I said if they're currently working for you. If you're able to get those marks, if you're able to revise in time, then completely all right. That's a great approach.
okay, Didi. Thank you so much, Didi.
No problem at all. Guys, just give me a second. We're getting more doubts. I have to wind this up in the next 10 minutes, but I'll try and answer all the doubts I
Can I ask
can.
a
My
question?
thank you everyone for being such a nice audience. Yes, you were asking something?
Yeah. How much did you score in CLAT 2023?
My score was 98.75.
And rank?
My rank was 95.
So you attempted all 150 question or left some?
I did not attempt all 150 questions. That is something I will not advise you guys to do as well. Attempt the questions you're sure about. Even if you're ambiguous, leaning towards the wrong side, do not attempt it. Try and attempt more than 100, but do not attempt the whole 120 of it all. And that was my advice. I'm sorry, were you saying something?
Actually, when I take mocks, I find some difficult question and I waste my too much time. So basically, I am asking you, how did you deal with difficult questions? Did you just
See, when it
leave it?
comes to difficult questions, if it is in the math section, then I attempted 12 out of my 15 questions that used to come in my time, and I got 11 of them right. I'm just telling you this for the sake of telling you. So if I found the three questions difficult, I could not attempt them in those time, so I just left them. But when it comes to an English passage or maybe a legal passage, wherein if I just give it maybe 30 seconds more and I just go back to the passage, and if I find the answer, I can answer that question. So maybe I'll go back to that. I'll devote a little more time to it. But maths and maybe LR, if it is logical reasoning, by that what I mean. If you're finding it a little harder, if you find some passages are difficult to comprehend, and if you have three questions to choose between at the end of the paper to revise, try and make those English and legal reasoning because the answer is definitely there in the passage and there's nothing to comprehend. You read it and you have to mark it. So those are short marks. You will not miss out on them unless you've made some grave error. So my advice would be if you have three questions to revise and only the time to revise one or two, go to the English or the LR or the GK section for that matter.
Basically, I am left with no time, and some of my logical reasoning passages left unread.
Okay, that is a situation you would not want to be in. You should not leave even questions for that matter unread. So for that, you guys just need to increase your reading speed. You need to practice your reading speed through giving different mocks, through the newspaper readings, through the sectional test. What I'd advise you is increase your reading speed because nothing else will help you. I can't advise you to skip questions or skip passages, and you have to read everything once. You can skip only after you've read and you've realized that it is too hard to do, but don't skip it because you were not able to read it. That is something that will be of detrimental value to you in the CLAT paper and not a position you want to be in, in December at least.
I finished my reading the passage in 2 to 2.5 minutes, but there are questions on inference question and speaking the argument questions, and this type of questions have very similar options. And for
Okay.
eliminating the options, I had to refer back to the passage, and this takes the time.
All
Do
right.
you
I am
do this?
completely getting a query that you are facing the questions when coming to eliminating options. So when it comes to eliminating options, there are only several questions wherein all four will feel right to you. In most cases, you'll feel a dilemma between two. So
Yeah.
first of all, you've just eliminated the two. When it comes to the left, the options that are left in the question, just read the answers, the two options again. You will find if any one of them has a similar wording to the passage. As the if the author mentioned, I can't think of any term, a phrase right now, but just imagine the author mentioned AAA, and one of the answers also mentions the same phrase in that form. Then, and if you have a shortage of time, go with the option that has a similar wording to the passage. Again, this will not work every time. This is something only you can do if you're facing a very crunch of time situation. So do it only then.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So anybody asking me for a daily schedule, guys, there's no daily schedule. I follow no routine. What I did was I woke up in the morning or whatever, whenever I woke up, I set a list of things I would do that day. For example, I'll do one test of sectional. I'll maybe do this topic of maths. Three things or four things I set for the day. I would not tell myself that I have to do this between 3 to 4 or 2 to 6 or whatever. I do it at any time. But the only one advice which is time constraint that I would like to give you is try and give your mocks between the 2 and 4 wala time period, because that is the actual CLAT time period, and you need to alter your brain chemistry so as to make it so that your brain is most active between 2 to 4. And you can't do that on school days, I understand. So at least on weekends, give your mock from 2 to 4. Schedule your lunch otherwise, move your tuition, do something, but keep the Sunday ka 2 to 4 or Saturday ka 2 to 4 free for one mock that you'll give on the weekend.
Hello.
I can, yeah, please continue.
Hi, Dee. I would like to ask a question myself as well. Uh, okay, so I would like to ask you, how should I make notes for GK? As in, I really like to I really like you to give me a detailed answer to that. And before you answer me, I would like to share a little information about me. Actually, I've been really sick from the past 2 months, and I've completely, मतलब सारी चीजें मेरी छूट गई हैं. I've completely लिंक छूट गया है मेरी स्टडीज से और स्पेशली जीके से. So I am like I have never been able to make notes for GK. I have asked many teachers and they have suggested
Okay.
me to make the notes just like the previous girl have asked you to make a details note, but I am not able to understand if the paper is not descriptive, then how can a descriptive notes can help us?
All right. So I think I mentioned this in the GK passage again. I'll mention it again. No problem at all. So when you're again newspaper reading is something essential, newspaper and mocks, just keep them highlighted somewhere in your brain. Do not let these go. So I'm reading the newspaper again and again, and I noticed that Manipur has been trending. I'm taking the example of Manipur. Only thing that's popping in my head right now. Take UCC. You know what? Let's talk about UCC. So UCC has been trending for the past 3-4 months. I realized that this is something which is very important because this is something that has been in the limelight. So it can come in the paper. I take a piece of paper, I open a Word doc, I put UCC as the heading. Now it is mentioned in the Article 44. I mentioned that. It's in Article 44. And UCC was first implemented in Goa by the Portuguese. You note these things down. And instead of making a passage about it, you make pointers. Article 44. Do not go into details that Article 44 talks about this. Not need at all. They won't ask you what Article 44 talks about. Right? Article 44, first implemented in Goa at Portuguese, by Portuguese. And then which year was it applied in? Now it is, I think, applicable in 4 more states, and they're planning to implement it in 2 more. Write those states down in the chronological order. For example, it started in Madhya Pradesh. I'm just saying this off the top of my head. This is not factual. Just trying to explain. Madhya Pradesh, Assam, Uttar Pradesh. For example, it started with Goa, Madhya Pradesh, Assam, Uttar Pradesh. So you have them down in the chronological order. So when you come back to your notes, you don't have to read passages. You come back to UCC. You come back if you're revising UCC for some other day, and you see there's only 8 pointers down. it is very easy to revise. It becomes very easy for you to revise. And what you can do is you go to UCC and you see something mentioned about a writ in the High Court. You know, a writ in the High Court is filed under Article 226. So you can just mention Article 226, writ of High Court. This is how you link passages. This is how you link topics. So you did UCC and you did the writ of the High Court thing. Maybe you delved into a little detail. Now you notice that now we come back to the Manipur example. Every article is talking about there's some conflict, and you notice that Manipur ka CM ye hai, it was formed on this day 1972, blah blah. But now you want to know what is the conflict about, because you're not able to place it in context. You go to Drishti IAS, you go to Google Manipur conflict Drishti IAS or Insight IAS or whatever. You open that site, you read about it, and you're able to place it in context. You remember the tribe names, which is the Mekas, and I'm forgetting the second tribe name, but you have the tribes in your mind. This will help you contextualize the information. When you read Drishti, you don't need to make notes necessarily. You just pick up the key points, like the tribe names. When did the conflict start? What is it about? And maybe just remember it. Don't even write it down, because that won't come in the paper.
Okay, that's some great advice. And one more thing, like how to cover that Kalki GK mantras of past few months.
Okay, the past few months. I think NLTI provides you with the compendiums and gazettes. So, you can't, again, you will notice that some topics have been done in deeper detail and some have been done one-liners. One-liners can be done on the go. I, for example, used to take my car to school. So while someone else was driving me, and I don't have car sickness, of course, I used to just read through the one-liners, because a detailed article requires the more attention. So one-liners can be done on the go. You need to find the time. It's not necessary you need to sit on your desk with water in hand. Of course, that is the optimal study environment, and that is what you do for mocks. But one-liners or some information like this can be done on the go. You're traveling to a mall somewhere, you are stuck in traffic. Instead of just scrolling away on Instagram, open your one-liners. Go through your one-liners, revise your one-liners. And when it comes to the deeper topics, the topics that have been done in depth, with deeper detail, just come back home, give it half an hour, and do those in detail. Just highlight the important points, make notes if you want to, and that's more than enough.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Yes, guys, I have to wind this up in 5 minutes. Just quickly.
I am facing problem with speed. So should I read everything with timer?
Yes, not everything, as in do your mocks with the timer, do your newspaper with the timer. If you're doing literary reading in form of maybe a novel or something, don't do that with a timer. But a newspaper reading, your mocks, your sectional tests, they need to be done with a timer, so that you can monitor yourself. You can, understand where you're at and where you want to be.
And I am facing problems with international issues or economical topics. And I am currently in class 12th. So I'm finding class 12th NCERT better. So should I finish those books now for understanding these topics?
My advice would be that would not be because you have only 4 months left. NCERTs can't be done in the blink of an eye. If you're not when it comes to economic passages, if they come in English or LR, you just need to use the term as is. You don't need to understand the details of it. When it comes to GK, you just need to remember the facts. So honestly, you do not need the theory to understand any part of the CLAT paper. So I don't think you should do the NCERT first. If you see a random number, India's GDP at 4.6%, just remember the 4.6% for GK. When it comes to passages, please continue.
But when it comes in RC passages or CR passages, then it becomes difficult for me to understand and then comprehend and answer the questions.
See, I understand your point, but if you had 6 to 8 months left, I'd advise you to, you can go through it. But you only have 4 months left. This is not the time to, get to the theory and then do the passages. You honestly just don't have enough time or enough brain power or stamina left for this, because you have boards in, again, the next 3 months. But if you think you can juggle it, and some topics that are of utmost importance or something that makes absolutely no sense to you, then go for it. But my advice would be rather read more economic passages. Get your economic times online or something and read the passages from there on.
Should I make notes for basic topics of legal like tort and contract for revising before the date of CLAT?
See, honestly, before the day of the CLAT, I would advise you not to revise anything at all, and definitely do not give a mock. But I don't think you should make any notes for the last day before CLAT. Legal topics, the legal important terminology, it's good for revising on like right now in the last 2 months, or right now in the last month. You don't need to revise legal as such, because you don't need to know the inside and outside of torts and contracts. That is something which won't come in the paper. The paper is more passage based. If you can read it, and if you remember even a slight bit of it, you can answer the question.
Should I read bare act of constitution or criminal
No,
manuals?
not at all, not at all. That is not something you need to do at all at this stage of your preparation. This will just add on to the burden, not needed at all.
And monthly magazine, are these helpful?
Yes, the monthly magazines are helpful, but again, you need to. So, if you are facing a lot of issues in like doing the monthly magazines, then maybe not do it. But if you're fine, if you're able to organize your time as such, then go for it. It's a great practice.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, guys. I can only take one more doubt. So I'll just quickly read the chats once. What compendiums do I recommend? I think the compendium provided by NLTI is very good. You can reach out to Legal Edge or CLAT Possible. They have pretty good compendiums as well. Somebody has asked me about a day, my life in NLS. So my life in NLS is fighting, not fighting, that's the wrong term. I've been studying a lot. We have a lot of readings. So reading is something you have to do it during your CLAT prep and then for years after. So that is not something that is going to leave you. Readings will stick with you. But yes, endless life is pretty good. So you have something great to look forward to, a great dream to, achieve. And I wish I see some of you as my juniors next year. So all the very best. All the very best for all your preparation. I hope you learned something from today's session and it helped you in some sort of way. And I wish all of you the very best of luck.